Hello, everyone. This is the real Dr. Swanson. Well, okay, it's not my real voice, but it's me all the same. I decided to step away from the previous AI hosts, David and Sophia, to answer your questions directly. First of all, thank you. It's honestly pretty amazing that here we are, just a handful of people from all different backgrounds and probably all across the country, maybe even the world. And yet we're coming together because of a common interest in transforming our health system. That's powerful. So thank you for your time, for your engagement. It really does mean a lot. As the AI hosts explained in the previous episode, I'm a full-time ER doctor. I also hold a master's in public health from Johns Hopkins, and I've published several academic papers on health systems transformation in journals like The Lancet. But honestly, most importantly, I'm a father and a concerned citizen. I really believe we need to do better, and we can do better. This system impacts all of us, and honestly, we shouldn't accept how broken it is. All right, let's get to some of your feedback. All right, so this first comment really stood out to me. It comes from Chaotic Curiosity on TikTok. They said, I am struggling to get past the AI hosts. That part feels wrong. I'm getting the uncanny feeling from hearing two non-existent people banter. Well, let me start by saying I hear you. Honestly, I've felt that same thing before. There's something about AI voices, even when they're telling the truth or sharing real passion, that can feel just off. So, I completely understand where you're coming from. But let me share with you why I've gone this route. Because believe me, it wasn't a decision I took lightly. Here's the thing. Our health system? It's not just flawed, it's like fundamentally broken. And to fix something that's really this chaotic and entrenched, we've got to reimagine the whole thing. Insurance, prevention, private equity greed undermining care, metabolic syndrome, the mental health crisis, the list goes on. And for me, this podcast isn't just about talking about those issues. It's about bridging a gap between what we know needs to happen and the tools we have to get there. It's my daily attempt to give you, my listeners, quick doses of information, inspiration, and actionable ideas to drive that shift. Because I think we both know this paradigm shift is long overdue. Now let's face it, AI is a game changer. And over the past few days, I've realized just how much it can empower efforts like this. There are three big reasons I decided to lean so heavily on AI for both the content and the voices. First, it lets me tap into all the information on the internet quickly. When I pair that with my background and expertise, prompting, guiding, and refining what AI generates, it's a powerful tool. But I'd never just let the AI do its thing blindly. The final message is still mine. Second, it saves a ton of time. Between my work in the ER and finishing a book, I'm writing about Lawson Scruggs, an incredible black doctor from the 1890s. I have limited hours in the day. And finally, the AI lets me stay responsive, closer to real time. Health system transformation is, if anything, dynamic. I want this podcast to reflect that reality, to bring in timely questions and keep everything relevant. It's the kind of thing I wish I'd had when I started out. Now I get that listening to non-existent people is weird, but this tech is going to keep advancing. I just hope we can use it for good. And for now, I hope you can see past the delivery and focus on the content, because that's where the heart of this lies. I'm also open to ideas. For instance, I've thought about using my own voice as an AI clone, but security concerns have made me hesitant. Next question. A comment from Sandafuge on TikTok caught my eye. It says, need to get rid of current insurances and stop greedy CEOs. Honestly, this is something a lot of people feel strongly about. And the frustration? It makes total sense. Our health insurance system, it's a patchwork mess. And right now, it often feels like it serves just about everyone except the people who need it most. Patients. I mean, there's a reason why researchers like Amy Finkelstein at MIT are looking at fresh ideas. If you're curious, I recommend checking out her recent book. It really challenges how we think about U.S. healthcare reform. But here's the thing. Yes, insurance CEOs have definitely made decisions prioritizing profit over health. No doubt. But, and I think this is critical, we also have to look inward. The legislation that shaped today's healthcare system, that came from politicians we keep electing. So while we hold corporations accountable, we also need to educate ourselves, get involved in the process, and drive change from the ground up. My hope is that conversations like this can play a small role in that. Now, let's also remember something crucial. Insurance coverage, while important, isn't the only piece of the puzzle. It's a piece, sure, but if we're talking about health, I'm talking about real, meaningful health here. Things like our diet, exercise, social connections, they tend to impact our well-being way more than any insurance plan ever could. Reforming insurance alone won't fix a system that's not designed to support fundamental health. You mentioned greed. That's the part that feels, honestly, so tragic. Individuals like Don Berwick, Elizabeth Rosenthal, Wendell Potter, they've been calling this out for years. Laura Packard, who's advocated so powerfully for patients, Mark Cuban taking on inflated drug prices, Avik Roy with a conservative perspective, these are just a handful of names all pointing to the same systemic issues. And I think they're right. The message needs to resonate more broadly if we're going to hit that tipping point where change becomes inevitable. So, one comment that really jumped out to me comes from Bart Bustamante, who said, "We are not going to get these things with Republicans in charge. Republicans benefit the wealth gap of the U.S. We do not matter to them at all, especially women and diversity." First of all, Bart, I hear you. Truly. It's no secret that the political landscape, especially under leadership like Donald Trump, has often aligned with policies that expand the wealth gap. And honestly, that's concerning. It's not just concerning, it's frustrating. Because, as you pointed out, these dynamics tend to disproportionately affect marginalized groups. Now, that being said, I want to step back a little bit and take a broader perspective here. Politics, like our health system, is a messy, complex system. It's, deeply interconnected. And I'll be upfront, I'm not an expert in health policy. But what I've observed, what I've really come to believe, is that too often, politics is driven more by tribal affiliations and sensational headlines than by meaningful, thoughtful action. It's like everything these days feels like it's all about picking a team instead of fixing a problem. And that, honestly, needs to change. My goal, when I talk about politics, isn't to dive into partisan bickering. I think we've had enough of that, don't you? I'm more interested in focusing on policies and assessing their potential to drive systemic improvement. It's about looking at which decisions, which ideas, serve as what we might call high leverage points, the spots where we can have the greatest impact using a complex systems approach. To respond more directly to your comment, Bart, I'd say this. Yes, politics during Republican dominance can certainly exacerbate inequalities. I mean, history shows us that's often the case. At the same time, though, I think we have to look at every voice in the room critically, like RFK Jr., for example. His stance on vaccinations has the potential to erode trust in science. That's troubling. But at the same time, his focus on nutrition and environmental toxins, that could lead to some real progress. The disruption he brings, it's unpredictable. It could either create meaningful reform or destabilize things further. So it's complicated, right? And I know some of you out there disagree with me completely, and that's fine. Honestly, I welcome it. This isn't about me having all the answers. This is as much my learning journey as it is yours. So please, keep sharing your thoughts. The great thing, at least I think, is that we're continuing this conversation, and that's the first step in building any systemic change. And just like that, we're at the end of today's episode. I gotta say, it's been a real privilege sharing this space with you. These thoughts, these ideas, they matter. And the fact that you're here, listening, engaging, it fuels everything I'm trying to do. I really do appreciate all the feedback you've sent my way. It's invaluable. You've helped me realize the gaps, the strengths, and where I need to adjust. So keep it coming. I promise to stay responsive. I mean, this isn't just a one-way street. It's a conversation, and I want to keep that alive. If you're on TikTok, YouTube, or LinkedIn, look me up. I post regularly, and I'd love to connect. My website is chadswanson.com, and my email is rchadswanson@gmail.com. Feel free to reach out. All right, everyone, take care of yourselves out there. Remember, the work you're doing by staying engaged, by questioning, and by seeking change, It matters more than you might know. On that note, I'll see you next time. Thanks again for listening.